Hi, we are from Group 6 and we'll be presenting building plan to obtain the Certificate of Completion and Compliance as known as CCC and highlight the clauses in the MIID contracts. Firstly, the procedure of building plans. We will go through the steps to get a CCC such as the submission for plans approval, return of plan, supervision of work, plans to be signed and scale of a plan that should be drawn. Here's an example of a site plan drawing which has included the location scale and number of lots area, north point, section number, rainwater tank, site accessing method, and also clearance dimensions. The content of floor plan mainly stated to include dimensions for building openings such as windows dimensions between wall piers and stanchions, site drainage, and discharge sizes, names, and uses of room. Here's the fees for consideration plan permit. Let's talk about the permit. The sketch plans may be submitted for minor corrections and alterations, addition in law of approved plans and permits. Permits may be issued on such terms and conditions as the local authority thinks fit for the erection of any fence which encroaches on a footway. Notice of the intention to commence the erection of building shall be made in Form B. If the work is not commenced on that, a further notice shall be given. Moving on to the tender step. Firstly, tender submission is required before the work started. Tender revision will be applied before it gets approved. Once approved, Clause 1.0 will come into play. Clause 1.0 talks about the legal responsibilities between the employer, interior designer, and the contractor. For the employer, they should provide the right of access to the project site at any given time, and as for the contractor, they should complete the works and the material goods of workmanship according to contract documents and required by the interior designer. The safety of all temporary works shall also be the responsibility of the contractor. Designer shall provide all relevant information to the contractor, notice the employer on issues such as quality, finance, and time in the contract, and most importantly, using interior designer instructions in all notice and constructions. Here are the examples of type of forms. Form A is the certification of building or structural plans. Form B is known as the notice of commencement of building works, while Form G is the stage certification of building components, and lastly Form F, which is known as certificate of completion and compliance. Moving on to Clause 4, which talks about the importance of all works, materials, goods, and workmanship shall be required by the interior designer. Furthermore, the contractor shall assign a representative to supervise or work. Employers shall assign inspections. Lastly, site staff shall only follow instructions authorized by the interior designer. Another important clause in the MIID contract is Clause 5. It talks about the variation rules. First of all, a variation is a written agreement to change the work from the agreed in the contract. Clause 5.1 states that interior designer can order or authorize any variations without violating the contract. More importantly, the interior designer may demand a variation at any time before the CCC. However, variation can create conflicts between parties. There are some examples of the negative effects operation can have. And when the tender is accepted during commencement, the contractor must maintain ownership of the site and complete the work on schedule. If the employer takes too long to give the contractor possession, the extension of time must be granted by the interior designer. Practical completion is when the employer can actually utilize the work fully for their intended purpose despite the minor defects. If the work is finished, the interior will give a certificate of practical completion, which will contain the contractor's promise to correct any flaws in a timely manner. The contractor have a completion date to complete the interior of the building. If the contractor fails to do so, the interior designer will issue a certificate of non-completion and the contractor shall pay the employer stated as liquidated damage in the appendix. The liquidated damage states the estimated money losses that an owner will suffer with contractor deliver a construction project. Here is an example of the liquidated damage amount showing the appendix of contract. After all, the procedure stated before has been completed. Here are examples of how fine works. Let's say the completion date is 31st of May and the work is done by 10th of June. The fine will cost 1,000 ringgit per day, so 10,000 ringgit will be fined in total. In another case, the extension is applied by the contractor and the new completion day will be given by the architect or ID. Therefore, the contractor will be fined 7,000 ringgit in total. The final step is to obtain the Certificate of Completion and Compliance, which is Form F, that shall be issued by the principal submitting person. The address that the specs of buildings such as fire safety, plumbing, and earthwork is well constructed and set for occupation, and he shall accept full responsibility for CCT. Last one, it's submitted. The result may be approved by the local authority, rectifying the failure or non-compliance within 21 days after the receipt of notice, and these are the procedures to obtain the CCC.